Welcome back to our channel. We want to thank you for watching. If you are joining for the first time, I appreciate your time. It is important to note that the United States of America, to an extent, rogue behavior with regards to the way it communicates, it's causing geopolitical tensions around the world. At this moment, we've seen the continent of Africa come under tremendous pressure. Looking at Djibouti, more importantly, the United States of America has singled out South Africa and also the country of Egypt, talking about the Gaza issue. In this particular episode, I want to look at this particular conversation on why the megaphone diplomacy is not what is going to work. The country of United States of America, to an extent, has sent open threat to the country of Iran, letting them know that if they do not succumb, if they do not cooperate, if they do not listen, if they do not align, that they will be bombed. Such a comment from a strategic engagement partner, which to an extent have no particular links. It should be noted that the country of Iran and the United States of America's communication is via the government of Switzerland, a representative that they are talking in that particular conversation. That's their line of communication. That's the reason why the President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump's comment was not received easily to the country of Iran. At this particular time, where other countries are talking about a multipolar world and the instability with regards to the global community, as challenges are happening at the moment in the continent of Africa, looking at Sudan, looking at the DRC Congo challenges and the war going on at the moment, looking at Ukraine and Russia, talking about the South China Sea in Latin America. More importantly, at this time, one of Africa's strategic partners has come under pressure, who is also a member of the Global South. However, the country of Iran has come out clear to remind the United States of America that we are not going to sit back and listen to that your unnecessary threat that you're going to be pushing forward. And that's the reason why we've seen officials from the country of Iran come out clear and said this.
Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, says his country will retaliate if the U.S. or its allies attack first. The warning follows U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to bomb Iran if the Islamic Republic does not agree to a new nuclear deal with the U.S.
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei arrives for prayers in Tehran to celebrate the end of the holy month of Ramadan. In his speech, a clear message to the U.S.
The enmity from the U.S. and Israel has always been there. They threaten to attack us, which we don't think is very likely. But if they do commit any mischief, they will surely receive a strong reciprocal blow.
It was Iran's supreme leader's response to U.S. President Donald Trump's demands for a new nuclear deal between the two countries. Trump recently repeated his threat that Iran would be bombed if it does not accept his offer for talks. He has also threatened to impose new economic penalties on the country.
We're going to make a decision on secondary tariffs on Iran based on whether or not they're going to make a deal. If they're going to make a deal, then we're never going to put secondary tariffs in. We hope they have a great, long, and successful life as a country. But we'll see what happens.
Since taking office in January, Trump has reinstated his maximum pressure policy. In his first term, the U.S. withdrew from a landmark agreement on Iran's nuclear program and reimposed sanctions on Tehran. Western countries have long accused Iran of pursuing a nuclear weapon and using proxy forces to expand its influence in the region. Charges Tehran rejects. Iran has said it will not engage in direct talks under the threat of military action, but it has left a door open for talks through intermediaries.
It is vitally important that international communication must be taken seriously on how countries communicate with each other. Any mistakes, unnecessary conversation, using on diplomatic communication cable can cause misunderstanding and lead to what the world could regret to an extent. The United States of America's communication at this time is immature, its lack of clarity and failure and diplomatic blunder in terms of the way they perceive communications with other nations. However, the country of the United States is entitled to its own communication method. However, other geopolitical partners perceive this particular method of communication and approach to also translate to their own population as weakness. More importantly, these countries will not back down to an extent if this is the preferred method of communication. It should be noted that it's the same president of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, who withdrew from that particular nuclear agreement that was set out before. However, at the moment, if this is how countries communicate, to come to ask other partners to come on the table to talk about very important things, and then more importantly, threatening them with making strikes or talking about tariffs, I think that is not going to work.
Well, joining me now is Alex Vatanka, a Middle East analyst and founding director of the Iran program at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. It's good to see you again. You know, it was U.S. President Trump who took the U.S. out of the original nuclear deal with Iran. What would this new nuclear deal, what would it look like?
Good to be with you. Look, I mean, I think most people would agree that President Trump does not have a grand strategy when it comes to the Iran issue, the Iranian nuclear file. In fact, I would say he would wish it would go away. But the reality is, in terms of politics here in Washington, D.C., where I'm speaking to you from, you know, he needs to do something on the Iran issue. There are plenty of different factions that want to see some movement on the Iran issue, and some of U.S. allies in the Middle East, particularly Israel and some of the Gulf countries, wanted to see some action, and that forces President Trump to do something. But in terms of your specific question, what would it look like? President Trump has made it very clear. All he's asking for, essentially, and this is something Iran should be able to live with, is that there is no Iranian nuclear weapon. President Trump has said that is his red line. So Iran can have a civilian nuclear program, but just no weapon, which essentially means we go back to 2015. That was the Iranian nuclear deal signed with the Obama administration. Right. But if Iran is smart, they have to make some adjustments to make President Trump feel like a winner here.
Yeah, well, Iran is resisting any negotiations directly with the United States over a new nuclear agreement. Why is that?
Look, you've got to understand the political cultural setup in the Islamic Republic. In Tehran, you have, and my sources there tell me this all the time, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been there, the top political figure since 1989. And if there's one issue that he's invested in more than anything else is this sort of, if you will, enmity, opposition to the United States. So for him to make a big U-turn on this is not that easy. And he fears that the style of diplomacy of President Trump and his team might just leave Iran humiliated. And that's why he wants indirect, subtle, behind-the-scene talks so something can be agreed on beforehand. And then if it's seriously going to have a prospect of success, then they can tell the world what happened. He wants a deal, no doubt about it. Khamenei wants a deal. He's pretty much said that repeatedly in recent weeks, but he's really scared of being humiliated by Trump.
However, Iran, should be noted, has not refused to go to the table and talk alongside the United States to an extent. Whatever the method of discussions will be, Iran haven't said they're not going to go forward. However, if you continue talking about this type of threat, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that to you, then you are calling for other countries also to show their own posture. Iran has made it clear to an extent that the United States of America is also vulnerable in several areas. According to some experts who said those living in glass houses should not throw stones. This is important, talking about that the United States of America has its troops and military presence across that particular region of the world. And by the president of one of the most powerful nations in the world using comments like this to talk to other international countries and other partners who to an extent do not agree with your position globally, I think it's not a good way to communicate. That's the reason why the continent of Africa to an extent is observing this failed relationship with regards to the current administration in the United States of America, as South Africa has come under tremendous pressure.
So if we don't negotiate then with cameras in front of us, does that mean there's another way? Is there a way for diplomacy to work to bring about a deal and a new nuclear deal?
Some of that is already happening. I mean, the country of Oman has done a lot of shuttle diplomacy in recent weeks and months. There are other candidates out there that are offering their services. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and most likely the next country or the first country for this President Trump 2.0 to visit, they've offered their services. So there are ways to sort of pursue diplomacy if there's a political will in Washington, Tehran. I think there is a political will in Washington, Tehran. Both sides want to look like they're going in as essentially the ones who are demanding the other side to succumb, and that's the wrong way about it. So, calming the rhetorical side of things would really help the diplomatic track at this moment.
Alex Vitanka, as always, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Africa is observing what's going on around the world, and the countries of the Sahel to an extent have also realized that the current strategic engagement should be with partners that win, not partners that send threats, unnecessary threat to an extent. At this time, it is important to note that the continent of Africa is making strategic choices which are not going to be popular around the world. So the current president of the United States of America's comment does not sit well with the countries of Iran. That's why we see the big pushback from the country of Iran. I think this kind of communication from the United States of America threatening a sovereign country, telling them that if you do not toe the line, we're going to do XYZ to you, I think it's lack of strategic thinking. It is important to note that irrespective of the United States position and alongside the country of Iran, and more importantly, a sovereign nation that also have its own interest to protect, and a country like the United States of America who think that it's have it all, it be all, as the country of the United States has threatened Europe and also impose sanctions on a number of countries around the world, and more importantly, this layman way of approach and what South Africa has called this type of communication a megaphone diplomacy is not sitting well. I wonder what strategic engagement the United States is anticipating to move forward in regards to its global role at the moment, as the multipolar engagement is what other countries are aiming for. At this moment, the country of the United States of America should observe very closely the relationship with the country of Iran, as these nations across the Middle East will not tolerate to an extent this type of communication, because to an extent, if they felt threatened, they will definitely stand their grounds. And the US should not ignore such communication, because any misinformation, any miscalculation could lead to something that we all were beginning to give it to the chin, that if we knew, we would have learned on how to communicate. That's why the country of South Africa had lambasted the United States of America's diplomatic communication, calling it megaphone diplomacy. I want to thank you for watching. Let me know in the comment section if this is the new format in terms of international communication, and this is how presidents should speak. And let me know if you think the next 4 years is just about to begin. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.